There's a lot of people who love coaching juniors. I don't mind coaching juniors, but it's not my favorite. I'm not a perfect coach, far from it. But I think the reasons that I get the product that I do for my athletes year over year on the good side is because my athletes know that I care for them. So these are like my 5 go-tos when I'm looking at what makes a senior team specifically unique and how I need to coach them just a little bit different than I would any other team. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Cheer Biz Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Cotton, and today we are going to be talking about my top 5 secrets for coaching senior team athletes. Now, before we get into the episode, if you are a Cheer Gym owner, head on over to NextGen or head on over to nextgenowners.com in general if you want to learn more about NextGen. Wow, I messed that up. If you are a Cheer Gym owner, head on over to Cheer Gym Owners on Facebook and join our Facebook group. And if you are a coach or a coach and owner, join All Star Cheer Coaches and Owners on Facebook as well, where we have owners only, coaches only discussions going on. Really great stuff. We do our best to make sure that there's no parents or anyone who shouldn't be in those groups. So make sure you ask the membership or answer the membership questions. And if we send you a message and ask you what's up and ask you who you are or where you coach, make sure you respond to those, because otherwise we won't actually add you to the group because we can't verify who you are. Now, I want to get into the episode, and I will be honest, I have been having creative block on what to talk about with you all. Just got back from our conference in Vegas this last week. At the conference in Vegas, I taught 7, 8 times. So I just was kind of at max capacity. And although I'm working on a number of things right now, none of them are really at a stage where I can share them with you. Although I am going to try and have some more actionable kind of teaching centric things that you guys can utilize as gym owners moving forward. But I was driving today and I actually received a text message from one of my athletes saying that they had listened to a couple of my podcast episodes and that they had appreciated getting to hear my thoughts and that it was helping them with their mindset. And I've got to be honest, and they're probably going to listen to this episode at some point in time, literally meant the world to me to have them say this. And this is a particular athlete who I've been with her for a really long time, coached her on a couple different levels. So she's been on my team for years. We have a very close relationship. And because of that, sometimes like we battle, right? We battle like parent and child sometimes. So knowing that, that confirmation of I am listening and I do want to take this stuff in is just, it's a wonderful feeling. And even though I get to help great gym owners and great coaches out there with my content, it's cool to be able to actually help your own athletes too. So that inspired me to share how I coach seniors. And I have been coaching senior age teams for well over a decade as like pretty much the only team I coach. I coached juniors when I first started coaching. I can't say I did a really awesome job at it. I was just learning by trial and error. And I definitely made a lot of errors as a young coach, just in how to motivate juniors and treat them. Although this was at an era where the junior age actually included kids that were up to fairly old, although even now juniors can have 16-year-olds on it. So, but senior teams are really where I found my niche in terms of coaching a team year round. I love working with junior teams or even working with youth or minis in a short-term environment. Like when I'm going and working dream camps, I have no problem coaching those teams for a short period of time, but I don't have the energy and the fun positivity that you have to really coach a mini and a youth effectively. So hats off to all of you that do that. You are saints. It's amazing. Those of you that coach those younger ages, and I get to reap all the rewards because you coach them well when they're younger. And then when they come to me as seniors, they're more put together and it makes my life a lot easier. So I know that I'm living the easier life in a lot of ways. And so I'm thankful for that. Now, there's a lot of people who love coaching juniors. I don't mind coaching juniors, but it's not my favorite for a variety of reasons. There's just some unique things about junior teams sometimes that stand out to me. Like one, they're at that weird age where they don't quite understand my sarcasm. And if they do, they try to give it back, but it's really not very well delivered. So that's number one. Number two is they are more in that like age range where you kind of get the kids who like ask questions to ask questions and not because they actually have a relevant question. That stuff gets on my nerves pretty quickly, especially in a stressful practice. So primarily, I coach teams year round for senior teams. So for those of you who don't follow the podcast regularly, I coach our senior medium 4 at Oregon Dream Teams, and I coach our world's senior small co-ed level 6 limited team. And I have actually coached level 6 teams. I've coached large all girl, small all girl, extra small co-ed, international open, large co-ed, international open, small co-ed, extra small limited co-ed, small co-ed, and large co-ed and medium co-ed. I've coached like almost every single division. In fact, we were large co-ed for a number of years, and I miss those days. I would love, not that I don't love my athletes now, but I miss being a large co-ed team. It was just so much fun. And there were many years where people were like, well, Dan, why do you do large co-ed? And I'm like, because it's just freaking awesome. And they're like, yeah, but you have to go up against TGLC and cheer athletics. And at that point, California All-Stars. And there was like, I think 7 or 8 of us in the division at one point. And I was like, yeah, but it's so fun because the routines are so awesome. And it's just so much fun to coach large teams. I love coaching larger teams, hence why I have a medium 4. They fill my cup. They're so much more fun to coach. They're so much more fun to do choreography for me as a human. Now, I know there's lots of people who are like, it's too much. I want my 12 kids. That's not my bag. But I'm going to be diving into my secrets, my tips for how to coach senior athletes, because it is a little bit different. And number one, first and foremost, is if you're going to coach a senior team, more so than a mini or a youth or even a junior, because at that age, you can excuse that they just don't quite understand. You have to develop a thick skin because they're going to say and do things that are going to hurt your feelings. It is something unique about being a teenager where you lash out at the ones that you love. And I know that I did it as a teenager. I know that all my friends did it as teenagers. I see my athletes do it to their parents all the time. It is just one of those things as you're trying to become your own person, you start to struggle with, how you're going to carry yourself. And sometimes that means saying things and not having a great filter and hurting people's feelings. And for those of you that don't know, I'm not a neuroscientist, but I did stay at a Holiday Inn once. I have also gone to some training about kids and their brains. And there is an age range, varies based off of male versus female, typically speaking. But between the ages of like 14 and 16, that their brains go through this rewiring process. And a bunch of the norms that you built into them and trained them in when they were younger kind of go away. And their neural pathways realign. And this is where you get the kids who do boneheaded things. And you're like, why did you do that? You know better. And they're like, I don't know. And they really don't know. It's because of those things happening. So you have to know that that's kind of a part of the game when you're coaching senior age kids, that's going to be happening with a certain demographic within your team. You also need to just be ready for that. You need to be ready for them to lash out. Like I mentioned before, the athlete that kind of inspired this, her and I can go rounds and she has a short temper and she knows it. There are practices where I don't even want to talk to her because I know she's just going to rip my head off, even though what happened or made her mad wasn't even my fault. In fact, it can even be something outside of the gym that, she was mad. I'm using her as an example, but this happens with countless athletes. Like all of my kids have their days where they come in and I'm like, oh, this is going to be a fun day for me because I can just see it on their face. And I try to ask, hey, what's going on? Anything going on outside the gym? No, nothing. Fine. Okay, well, that note to self, not fine. So tread carefully. And you need to develop that thick skin. They're going to say things that can be hurtful without even thinking about the fact that they're hurtful, without really realizing what impact that might have on you. So for instance, being a coach, and actually this is at every level, but being a coach who you're sitting there and you're coaching and they're talking about how much better this other coach is, or how much they really like that coach, or how they can't wait to go to college because they'll finally get to be coached by good coaches, or things like that. And those things, they're saying them because they're just kids and they're thinking and they're speaking what is coming to mind. But it hurts a little bit more because you're like, well, you're kind of an adult. Like you drive a car, you're a little bit more responsible, so you should be able to know the difference. And they just don't. So you got to have that thick skin. On top of that, I'm kind of giving you a 2-in-1 here. You need to also, with the thick skin, You need to be able to own your mistakes and get comfortable saying you're sorry. You are not infallible as a coach. I am not infallible as a coach. You are going to make mistakes. You're going to run practices ineffectively at times. You're going to get angry potentially and lose your temper and lash out yourself. You're going to read the score sheet incorrectly and get some sort of a scoring issue. There are going to be a variety of things that happen throughout the course of a season. And I believe that it is very important that we demonstrate the behaviors that we want to see from these athletes, especially at this age where they are so impressionable and we are really making a huge impact on how they are going to go out and behave in the real world. And in the real world, it is important to be able to apologize. It is important to be able to say, I own that mistake and I am sorry, with no blaming or deflection of other reasons of why the thing occurred, but just simply owning it. And I will tell you, this is also why you have to have the thick skin, because there are going to be times where you are going to apologize and take responsibility for things that maybe aren't fully your responsibility, but it is your job as a leader, and especially as a leader of this age group, to own it completely. So, for instance, I have had this position in a crummier situation where, well, not crummier, just a challenging situation. But when my medium 4 did not make it to finals, the first year they'd never not made it to finals at D2 Summit. And I made the choice to go to them and simply say, I am sorry. It is my job to give you a routine that could have scored and won. And even though we had a deduction, even without that deduction, we would not have made finals, which means I failed you. I failed you as a coach. I failed to either hold you accountable or build a culture or train you the right way or place the team the right way. But ultimately, it falls back to me, and I am sorry. And that is my fault. And that is hard. That hurts to say, but it is so important when you're coaching this age range, because it is what is going to give you buy-in from them. You are creating an authentic relationship. You're letting them know that you're not infallible and that you are someone that they can trust. And trust is so critical at this age range because you have to earn it. It is not just going to be given because they are a child. When they are minis and youth and even juniors, oftentimes that younger age range, they're just going to trust you because you're a coach. And they're going to love you and think you're amazing. When you start to get into those high school age ranges, you got to earn it and you got to prove it. And unfortunately, you got to do it every single day. And if you don't, then they're going to hold it against you. Now, my next secret is to create buy-in through collaboration and autonomy. Now, what do I mean by this? Because I am not saying that you should let your team make all the decisions, and I am not saying that you should let your team just run their own practices and be autonomous and have a captain-run squad and they just decide what they're going to do. I don't think that at all. But creating buy-in through collaboration can look like this. We have 3 practices leading into a competition weekend, guys. My goal is for us to hit 5 full outs. How do you want to attack this week? We can do them all at the beginning. We can spread them out evenly. We can just go hard tonight and see where it takes us. Like, give them options and autonomy so they can weigh in. Like, you have to set the boundaries to make sure that you're accomplishing the things you want to accomplish. But by providing them that collaboration, it gives them some buy-in. It lets them know what's going on. I also talked about this in my practice planning episode. When we were struggling early on in the season to kind of get some buy-in from our Worlds team, sharing the practice plan and just letting them know what was going to be happening so they could come in and even collaborate with us a little bit was very beneficial. There was a year where I had senior meetings where we met with the seniors every week and we said, these are our goals going into the week. What are you guys seeing? What are you guys hearing? What are you guys feeling? And created collaboration that way. Now, when we talk about autonomy, it is good to allow your athletes time to work without you running every single thing. It is okay for them to work on their own a little bit, whether that be working on a tumbling skill a little bit on their own or working on a stunt a little bit on their own, and or giving them permission to make decisions about what it is they do in the routine. So, for instance, last night I had a conversation with an athlete, and they all know kind of where we're at on my Worlds team of we're short a few of our elite passes being consistently thrown. And I had a conversation with a kiddo and I said, hey, you're throwing these passes, but they're not all advanced. So do you think that you are capable of adding X skill here? Is that feasible for you? She was like, well, I'm not sure, probably. And I go, it's fully your call. I trust you. I want to make sure that you're making the right decision for you as an athlete, but also know that this would really help our score. You could definitely help drive it up. And I had that conversation with two different athletes similarly. And I'm giving them autonomy to make the decision. I'm not sitting there going, you will throw this, or I'm going to, scream and yell at you, and you need to do this or else. I'm saying it's in your control. It's in your power. It's in your choice. But here's the reason I'm asking you to do it. Here's the benefit that comes from you doing this thing. Now, the next secret is one that frequently gets missed with senior age athletes because we start to give them autonomy in those things and we fail to do this, which is hold them accountable. We think that because they are older athletes, that they want less accountability, that they want to be given their freedom and they don't want to be held accountable. And we have to be more understanding of them. And I have actually found the opposite. When they are at this age between the ages of 14 and 18, they're craving structure and accountability. They want it. They want to be held accountable. Yes, they might buck a little bit. They might, get a little bit heated with you, but they want that accountability. Like, yeah, they're going to grumble and be mad when they have to condition because, so-and-so is late or just, whatever that ruling is, but hold them accountable. Even if it is to practice attire or what time they have to be at practice, like maintain your expectations, figure out what are the things that are your non-negotiables. You can even, goes back to collaboration, decide as a team, what are our non-negotiables as a team? And what are the things that you want me to hold you accountable for all season long? And then stick to that. Now, it's hard. It's easy to forget those things. In fact, even just speaking this, I'm realizing we did it at camp around campfire. We went around and talked about all the things we could be held accountable for. And I've kind of fallen by the wayside on it a little bit, partially because I didn't write them down. So I don't remember all of them to hold the athletes accountable. But you have to be diligently holding your athletes accountable all season long. They will appreciate it and they will grow through it. Now, the next one you may think is related to things like conditioning, but that's actually not what I'm talking about. You need to ignore the groaning. And this is a huge secret. And what am I talking about? Ignore the groaning in. Ignore the groaning about this is too kiddie. So I have had this all the time, right? The senior age kids, you're like, hey, senior team, we're doing a sleepover. And they're like, oh, I don't want to do that. I want to, go and hang out with my friends. I don't want to sleep at the gym. Like, this is not what I want to do. Or we don't want to go to the pumpkin patch, or we don't want to do that thing. That's stupid. That's for little kids. And quite literally, every single time I ignore them and we do it anyways, they have the time of their lives. Why? Because they get to be kids with no extra stressors on top of them, without having to worry about the social structures of, boyfriends and girlfriends, all those other crazy things. Like, they just get to be a team and be kids and have fun. So work those things into your plan for your senior teams and ignore the groaning about it being kiddie or it not being fun, even playing games in practice. I will tell you, you could go out there with one of my senior teams, and if you at the beginning of practice were like, hey, if you guys do X, Y, and Z, you get to play duck, duck, goose at the end of practice. They'd be like, who cares? But then if they earned it, I guarantee you they would have fun playing duck, duck, goose. Guarantee you. Why? Because they get to be kids. And the reality is, these kiddos who are on your senior teams, they're on the tail end of being a kid. They're way closer to being adults and having to get real jobs. They're closer to being married and having babies in a lot of situations than they are to being true kiddos when they're 8 years old. They're way closer to that other side. And in being an adult, as you all know, if you're listening to this as adults, being an adult, like, it lasts a while and it's not as cool as it originally looked to be when you were a teenager, right? I used to tell kids this all the time when I was working as a school resource officer at the schools, is I'd hear kids be like, oh, I just want to graduate and start work. I just want to get working, get my own life, get my own place, get my own house. And I'm like, guess what? That sucks. Like it's cool eventually, but it sucks at first for quite a while because it's expensive. It's all on your own. Suddenly the fridge, it's not filling itself because your parents aren't doing it. Like all of those things, they go away. That's all relies on you. It's a very different world. So although it looks really cool and you're like, yeah, but I'll get to stay out late with my friends as long as I want to and all that. Suddenly you can't do that because you have to wake up early in the morning for work, et cetera, et cetera. So ignore the groaning and let them be kids. Structure those things in, dress up, be silly, have fun, let them enjoy the ride. My last secret, and this is the most important one, and you could say it relates to every single level, but I think it is much more important with your senior age kids, especially for those of you who've asked me questions like, how do you have a big senior program? I always lose my seniors. They always leave and go to high school cheer or those other things. How do you retain senior age kids? And number one thing is you have to make them special. You have to make being on that team special. You have to make them feel special. Kids at this age range, more than any other, are craving belonging. They are oftentimes lacking that in their school environment. They maybe have a small group, but to have a group that they belong to and wants them and values them and believes that they are special and important is the bread and butter. That is what is going to not only be great for their self-esteem and great for them as human beings as they progress into the world, but it is going to help them stay in your gym. It's going to make them want to be there. It's going to really just increase that retention, and it will get the buy-in from the athletes. I'm not a perfect coach, far from it. But I think the reasons that I get the product that I do for my athletes year over year on the good side is because my athletes know that I care for them. They know that they are special to me. They know that I would do anything I could to help them. And because they know that I would lay down in traffic for them, they push a little bit harder. They're willing to give a little bit more. And that doesn't mean my life is perfect because it's far from. It's still very challenging, but they know that I'm invested and they know that they are special to me. And that includes talking to them about what they want to do with their life after cheer. Where do you want to go to college? What do you want to do? How can I help you along that journey? Thanking them for being there. It goes such a small thing. Hey, thank you for coming to practice today. I know that that is the expectation, but it's their choice. And they are going to choose every single year whether or not they keep doing that. So if they don't feel valued, if they don't feel special, if they don't feel important, it's not going to be surprising if they choose something different. And oftentimes they're choosing something where the person makes them feel special. This is why the grass is always greener exists, but also why I think you can combat it is if you truly make your kids feel valued and you're offering them what they need and what is best for them. The only situation where I think that the grass sometimes is greener is if you're not offering that level and an athlete is like, they're a really elite kid and you only have a level 2. Like sometimes the right thing to do is let them go. And I'm not saying this to you just because I think you should do that. And I've definitely benefited from it where we've had talented kids come to my gym because we offer high levels, but I've also done this myself. I have had multiple, like I think 10, maybe more kids now leave my gym and go on to win worlds. No joke. Go on to win world's rings, whether that be with Team USA or California All-Stars or Top Gun or Cheer Athletics. But I have had kids who've been a part of my program, who I have coached, who have left and gone on to win or globe at Worlds. And I support that. I wish them nothing but do I want it to happen? No. Would I love them to just win Worlds with me? Yes. But I don't have the same depth that those programs have. The first athlete that ever did it went to California All-Stars SMOED. And this was back when SMOED was still small co-ed. And that was, I think, the last year they won small co-ed worlds as a team for a little while. Then she came back the next year and we welcomed her back with open arms. I've talked about this on other podcasts, but like you have to make your kids feel special and know that you care for them on a deep, deep level. I've coached seniors for a really long time, and that's where I've gotten these 5 secrets. And most of them I've gotten from making plenty of mistakes. Now, there are a million other things you need to do when you're coaching senior teams, but a lot of them apply across the board. These are just the 5 things that came to mind for me when I was thinking about recording this episode. These are like my 5 go-tos when I'm looking at what makes a senior team specifically unique and how I need to coach them just a little bit different than I would any other team. So I hope you enjoyed the episode, whether you're a coach, a parent, an athlete, an owner listening to it. I hope you got something out of it. If you did, please share it with someone. We've definitely seen our listeners increasing, and that means the world to me. I thank you for listening. If you are a coach, hopefully these tips help you and you can apply them within your gym. If you're an owner, share it with your coaches, especially your coaches of senior teams or coaches who aspire to coach senior teams. And with that, we will catch you on the next episode.